Hit record.
The material that I'm going to present this evening is stuff that I've been working with for a while, but I've never presented it quite like this before, and I'm kind of working on it. I'm trying to figure out how to do it well. I guess I'll start off just saying I'm someone who's very committed to trying to change the way the public mental health system is organized and treats people. As someone who spent a bunch of time locked up in psychiatric hospitals and then working outside in the system. I'm really interested in how we can flip the script. And I think in some ways we're living in really hard times, but there's something about like the chaos of the times that we live in that maybe we can think about like what would larger dramatic changes look like. So this is a conversation about larger dramatic changes, but it's also like about what's going on inside ourselves. Okay, so here's where the story really starts, okay? So it's like 2016, and I'm a social work intern in New York City. I grew up in New York City. I left for a long time. I came back, went to social work school, and I managed to land this really awesome internship at this place called the Parachute Program. And the Parachute Program had somehow, they managed to talk about underground to mainstream. They had managed to get millions of dollars to train clinicians and peers in this model called open dialogue. Have people heard of it? Open dialogue? So there I was, someone who, I was a family member. I was someone who would spend a bunch of time pathologized and in my complicated family situation or whatever. I suddenly have this amazing internship where I'm going to people's homes all over the island of Manhattan, like very diverse homes, like really a whole bunch of different kinds of people from different cultural and class backgrounds, and sitting with their families. And the requirements to be part of the program for the families was that there had to be one person in the family who was diagnosed with a psychotic disorder and was recently out of the hospital. So I would go there with like one or two other people, and we would sit and we would listen, and there were these basic principles of thinking about how to work. If people know open dialogue, those principles. The thing that I'm going to uplift here for folks who are clinicians, you know this stuff, I imagine. But for me, it was a revelation. The ability to be able to come into somebody else's family system and sit there and be like open and curious and just be able to sit, that there was like substantial changes that would happen because of that. We're not talking about like violent interventions of whatever. We were talking about like sitting and listening and holding space for people who had different perspectives. And it was a life-changing experience for me. And I was like, this is what I want to do, In the 1960s and 70s, there were all these competing ways for thinking about what was mental health and mental illness, right? And psychiatry was in like a state of crisis. And then, as I think we all know, there was like, in the 1980s, there was like the rise of biopsychiatry. Ronald Reagan was elected president. There was like this whole shift that took place. And in a very quick period of time, all these ideas that people that had been beginning to flourish in the mental health system just like got erased. So one of the ideas that I've been around for a while, like I know that I've been telling that story for a long time, but it wasn't until I went to social work school and had that experience with open dialogue that I realized, wow, there's this thing called systemic family therapy that was a movement that was actually a critique of psychoanalysis. So at the time, right, psychoanalysis was like the dominant form of, that's what people were getting. That was like the frame people were using. Systemic family therapy had all this other stuff going on. And in the 1980s, with the rise of biopsychiatry and the rise of managed care, which changed the way that payments worked, all of a sudden, like, all these ideas got marginalized. So the reason I put the Back to the Future thing here is that this is a family therapy textbook that I found in a used bookstore in Berkeley, California. And if you see the name on the right there, Richard Schwartz, the author of the family therapy textbook, that dude is the founder of internal family systems therapy. And I think it's really, this is like, what I'm trying to do right now is like draw a connection between internal family systems and like this whole very powerful movement. But now I'm going to give you a brief but rich history of systemic family therapy. Systems thinking recognizes the importance of focusing on a pattern of relationships within a system rather than the substance of its parts. That's like if you wanna like boil it down to its most basic, you can do it that way. The problems of individuals always occur in a larger context. You can't just take a single person and say this person has a psychotic disorder without looking at their family and the schools they went to and all the institutions that they're a part of, like all that stuff. It's the way it is. And the contexts always have interconnected patterns. And this is where we get to talking about fractals, right? This is where we understand that the basic idea, and by the way, this is a quote from Adrienne Marie Brown. We were talking about her earlier. She's not a clinician, but she's like a total, badass revolutionary. So her definition of a fractal is a never-ending pattern. Fractals are infinitely complex patterns that are self-similar across different scales. They're created by repeating a simple process over and over in an ongoing feedback loop. So that image on the front page, that was a mathematical equation, and then it's plotted. You know, how we are at the small scale is how we are at the large scale. The patterns of the universe repeat at scale. There is a structural echo that suggests two things. One, that there are shapes and patterns fundamental to our universe, and two, that what we practice as a small scale can reverberate to the larger scale. When I work with individuals, I think about very carefully the small things that we're doing that then have an impact on a larger scale. And when groups of people get together and think in this kind of way, this pattern way, there's things that we can do that make us more powerful.